Okay, guys, we're about to get started. What's up, Sterling? How you doing? Hope you're doing well. We see some people that are starting to trickle in now. Okay, so we're gonna start by taking a look into some of the economic data that's going to be dropping this week. Do you mind switching on the other light? So, from an economic data perspective, tomorrow we have the existing home sales that's going to be dropping. And on Tuesday, we have PPI that's going to be dropping, and PPI is definitely a big one. So last week we had CPI, which is the consumer side, and then PPI is the producer side. So the key thing that we're going to be looking for is, are we going to hit this 1.2% forecast? Or is it going to be higher? If it's higher, things might not look good in the market, and things are already not looking good right now because of what's happening with the Iran deal. It didn't go through. They basically went to Pakistan and came back empty-handed. So there's going to be that side. So Tuesday is definitely a big day. With the Strait of Hormuz being closed, the crude oil inventories are going to be important. A couple of weeks ago, the inventory was around 6 million barrels, and previously you can see it's now dropped to 3. So we're going to need to keep a close eye on these numbers. And before, crude oil inventories wasn't as big of a metric. Now it's all of a sudden becoming more and more important. And then the last, but definitely not least, is with the initial jobless claims. That's going to be dropping on Thursday. So initial jobless claims on Thursday, that's going to be a big one. Okay. So those kind of like the economic results that are going to be dropping this week. So it's super, super important for you guys to keep a look at it. Big K saying that screen is black, we can't see. Okay, let me take a look and see what's happening. All right, so just give me a quick chance to see. Okay, so let's do entire screen. And then let's do, how about now? Are you guys able to see the screen now? It's on now. Okay, perfect. Clearly you can see that is my first time doing it. And I'm doing it with one screen. My other screen didn't work for some reason. So I apologize. Oh, we have Antoinette. Antoinette, I think this is your first pre-market live, right? Good that you're here. All right, so let's just go through what I was discussing. So this is the economic data that's dropping Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Monday, existing home sales is going to be important for us to see if home sales are picking up for the month of March, if they picked up. But like I said, Tuesday is going to be the big one because the producer price index is measuring essentially the prices for producers. So, for instance, if you shop at Walmart, how much is Walmart buying its goods now that they're going to be selling to you, right? So, if Walmart is receiving higher prices for the goods that they're selling to you, what's most likely going to happen is that you're going to see prices in the store start to go up, right? Because they have to keep their margin, they have to manage their costs and all that stuff. So Tuesday, from an economic data perspective, is a very, very big day. All right. So you want to pay attention to this. And in the Discord, in my private community, we normally drop these numbers. Sterling does a good job doing that. So keep an eye when those numbers are dropped into Discord. I was just talking about the crude oil inventories on Wednesday. So let's pay attention to what's going to happen with the crude oil inventories on Wednesday, because it's going to be very, very telling as to where we stand with regards to oil, with the Strait of Hormuz remaining closed for now. It's going to be important to see where we stand with regards to oil. And then on Thursday, like I said, initial jobless claims. This past Thursday, it came higher than expected. So it's going to be interesting to see if the number also comes higher with this latest round. And then from an earnings perspective, now we're going to start to see earnings pick up really, really fast. So with the big banks kicking things off this week, Goldman Sachs is going to be a very interesting one to look at tomorrow. So keep your eyes on Goldman Sachs. The big day really is Tuesday, because on Tuesday you have Wells Fargo, you have Citi, you have BlackRock, but more importantly, you have JP Morgan. JP Morgan is the largest bank in America. And, normally, like, Wall Street is paying attention to what JP Morgan has to say. So it's going to be important on Tuesday before market open. Just pay attention to the drops from the big banks, because on Tuesday you have, three big banks dropping: Wells Fargo, Citi, and JP Morgan. So it's going to be important to pay attention to that. Now, if you look at the bottom, you'll see that Albertsons is also going to be dropping. So this is a big, big grocery chain. And just pay attention to what they also have to say, especially the future guidance with regards to prices. All right. So it's going to be important to pay attention to that. Wednesday, we have Bank of America, Morgan Stanley that are going to be reporting. ASML is also an important one, mainly because this is in the semiconductor chip industry, where you have, all the AI demand activity happening. So want to pay attention to what they have to say. Thursday is also a big day because you have TSM, which is also a big one in the semiconductor chip industry that's going to be reporting, as well as Netflix. So it's going to be interesting to see, are people canceling their subscriptions because of what's been going on with increased prices, gas prices going up, or are subscriptions continuing to go up? What you might actually find interesting is that in bad times, you actually see the Netflix subscriptions go up, mainly because people are trying to distract themselves from all of the noise. So just pay attention to that. And then Thursday, we also have our favorite brokerage firm, Charlie Schwab, that's also going to be reporting. So keep an eye out for that. Long and short is that earnings are back, and we're going to see the activity starting to build up quite significantly going forward. Now, last but not least, before we dive into the charts, so we're going to go into TradingView in a minute, is the Fear and Greed Index. So what's interesting is that people are actually coming a little bit higher this past week, because there was the prospect for the negotiations that happened this weekend, right? So if you remember last week, for people who are in my community, the Fear and Greed Index last week was like in the 20s. We closed the week around close to 40, but with the deal having not gone through, is this going to drop, or what's really going to happen? You have the U.S. Navy now positioned, in the Gulf region to block any traffic coming in and out of the Strait of Hormuz. Is that going to cause an escalation? So there's a lot to unpack there, really. So we're curious to see what will happen. All right. So that's really it with regards to kind of like the fundamental analysis that we need to do. So right now we're going to dive into the charts, and we're going to start by looking into QQQ, and then we'll look into SPY, and then we'll look into futures. And then depending on time, we might look for some interesting opportunities for the Asia Open in like 40 minutes or so, because we have Asia Open that's starting out at 8 o'clock. So we're just going to start by looking at this from a daily. In fact, let me switch over to a weekly, and then we'll start to really understand the narrative of what's been going on. So if you look into QQQ, right, we have this major drop to the downside. We had been extremely bearish for about a month, give or take. 3 doji candles back to back, 2 very strong bearish candles, and then you have these 2 weeks where we were extremely bullish. But we went straight into a supply zone. So right now, price is in a supply zone, in a supply zone. So what we're going to be looking for here is there going to be a drop, right? A major retracement and a major pullback. So that's going to be a key part of this week. If we remain bullish, are we going to come and retest these all-time highs? So those are the multiple scenarios that we have. So we have scenario number 1 where we've gone into a supply zone from a daily perspective. Are we going to see ourselves drop to the downside? Or are we going to go into the supply zone, retrace a little bit, and then continue to go to the upside? So those are going to be the 2 scenarios that we're going to be paying attention to in the market. Now, if we drop down to a daily, right, one of the things that you're going to see is that with this massive gap on a daily, you see massive gap on a daily. So we've essentially created a scenario where market makers might want to correct the structure here and close this massive gap that's right here. And if we're using the daily for our market structure on QQQ, what we find is right now we have midpoint of our supply zone, key retracement area, and then another key retracement area in tandem with the demand zone, because right over here we have a demand zone that's sitting over here. And all the levels that we're going to be discussing here, this is all for educational purposes, okay? So just bear that in mind. So these are going to be the key levels that we're going to be looking for on SPY and QQQ. So in fact, this is QQQ. So what we're going to be looking for at least is a potential retracement back into this 597 level, or even potential continuation to 585. So those are going to be the levels that we're going to be looking for on QQQ. All right. So if we come down to SPY, all right, let's see SPY to SPX. So let's pull SPY real quick. There we go. So we're gonna take out some of these levels. We want to start off afresh. And then from a SPY perspective, it's also quite similar, right? If you look into kind of like the weekly, we had kind of like the 5 weeks where we're just all bearish, the 2 weeks where we're bullish. We're coming back towards the all-time high and also the top of the trading range that we're currently in. And we're just going to identify some of the key areas over here. So there's one key level. And then if you come down to a daily perspective, with a key major supply zone over here. And then we also do have another key level down here. So what we're going to be looking for as we get into the week is, are we going to pull back to this 667 level? Are we going to break 682 to the upside? And are we going to come into this 692 supply zone? And then obviously, if we do drop, we also do have a demand zone that's sitting down here. So we're going to come into this 656 demand zone. So those are going to be the key levels and areas of interest that we're going to be looking for in on SPY. So there's the potential that we can come down to this 667 level and then maybe bounce up, or continuously drop to 657. And again, this is all just for educational purposes, but these are going to be the key levels that we want to be looking at. And for those of you guys that are in my trading community, on Monday during the pre-market deep dive, I'm going to dive into like more levels once we have some pre-market data. All right. So right now we're going to look into what's happening in the futures market, and we're going to take a look and see. So if we look at it from a 1 hour perspective, you can see there was this massive gap down at market open, right? So on Friday, the market closed here, right? So we closed at 6864, and today the market opened at 6780. So massive gap down, right? In terms of the market open with futures. So we're gonna look for potential levels for us right now. And let's just identify some key levels. So we could potentially drop to this 6707 level. So this could be a very key area of interest. We've opened up the first hour with a very, very tight trading range. So you can see our tight trading range right here. This was the first 1 hour candle, but it opened up as a doji. So that's also quite interesting that we had the doji for the open. And then if we now start looking into structure, you can kind of like see we went up, we dropped, we set this support level, went up, right, into this key retracement area, as you can see right here. And now we're kind of like within this trading range. So what I'm going to be looking for at 8 o'clock, which is going to be the Asia Open officially, is essentially two things. The first thing is, are we going to break this retracement level right here, this 6779 level? Are we going to come and break this 6767 level? We break 6767, we could potentially drop all the way down to this 6707 level, potentially, right? If we don't break and hold this level, there's the expectation that we can come grab the liquidity at 6795. So what I'm going to be looking for in the next 45 minutes or so is price going to come and break this level? If we break and we hold, there's the expectation that we're going to make a massive dash to that level, right? Or if we're going to break this level, are we going to come and sweep this liquidity that we set over here, and then potentially there's where we start to drop? So those are the scenarios that I'm going to be looking for with Asia. And then obviously there's this expectation that we can actually potentially continue to come up, and we can continue to come up to this level. So those are the levels that I'm going to be paying attention to in about 40 minutes when Asia opens. And then I'm going to be looking at it on a 5-minute. So that's going to be kind of like the expectation. So that's what we have so far. So I'll take any questions in the live chat. If you guys have any questions, if there's a particular stock you want us to take a look at, with the upcoming earnings that we looked at, you have JP Morgan, Bank of America, and so forth. Let me know. So I'll take any questions right now in the chat. So guys, let's be engaged. Let me know what you guys are wanting for us to take a look at, so we can spend maybe 10-15 minutes looking into levels for different companies. So feel free to put in any requests in the chat, and we'll be good to go. So Vivian, good to see you. Are you trading Asia right now? Are you looking for some levels in the market right now? Yeah, you're looking into Asia. Yeah, Asia right now, it looks interesting, like I said. And the big thing right now on ES, if you're trading ES, is are we gonna break to the downside? So while I'm waiting for some questions, I'm actually gonna chart NQ, because I'm gonna be trading NQ. So that's gonna be my poison of choice. So I'm just gonna do NQ right now, and then I'll walk you guys through what I am seeing and what I'm expecting in a minute. And then feel free to drop the questions, and then we'll answer any questions that you guys might have. But right now, obviously, with the situation in Iran, the situation is looking a little bearish. I'm going to be looking for a move to the downside, really. That's what I'm going to be looking for. And for those of you guys in my community, just let me know who's here, because obviously on here I can't really see who's here and who's not. Obviously, by Chip Central, I know it's Vivian. Sterling, I know it's Sterling. Antoinette, I know it's Antoinette. Big K585. Who is that? Who is Big K? All right, so let's see what we can come up with on the levels for NQ. Like on days like this, where I think like the market is going to move, I prefer trading NQ, but you go extremely light on your position size. So for instance, no Big Joe, not Big Joe, I don't think. No, it's Big K585. Big Joe, I know it's you, right? Joe Moody. But I see there was like a Big K585 on here. So hopefully they'll introduce themselves so that I know who it is. But anyway, I'm gonna finish my levels on NQ, because like I said, I'm gonna be looking to take a trade on NQ. And right now on NQ, this is what I'm looking for. So obviously we have this consolidation range between 25,022 and 24913. That's my consolidation range. If we break the support, I'm looking for the drop all the way down here. So if you look at it from a trading perspective, and I'm just gonna bring it down to like a 5 minutes so that you guys can see what I'm gonna be looking to trade. I'll be looking for something like this here. Okay. So, to put some context into it, this is kind of like what I'll be looking for. So if I can just catch this, I'm done. That's pretty much all I need. And if I do one or maybe even two, right? If I'm to do 2 micros, that's kind of like what I'm looking for. So very, very tight on the risk. but really, really solid reward. And then on this play, as you can see, the idea is to take the entry below the support. So, you don't take it on the first drop. You anticipate a potential retracement, and then when it's now coming back down like this is when you look to jump in. Okay, so there's going to be probably an initial drop, and then there's going to be a pullback, and then after the pullback, that's when you set your limit order, your stop limit order, and then now on its way down, that's when you get entered. So this is going to be the setup that I'm going to be looking for on NQ. So I don't see any questions. So it looks like you guys are all kosher. So that will be that. I don't have two screens working right now. If I had two screens, I would make this longer, and we would do a quick live trading session. So I'll try to have that ready for next week. But unfortunately, this week it didn't work. So great week lined up ahead. We have the earnings coming up for the big banks. We also do have some really good economic data that's going to be dropping. So if you come back here, you can see existing home sales on Monday, PPI on Tuesday. This is going to be a big one. Crude oil inventories on Wednesday, and then initial jobless claims on Thursday. And then if you come down into the earnings perspective, Goldman & Sachs on Monday, JP Morgan, Citi, Wells Fargo, and even J&J on Tuesday, and then BlackRock as well. And then on Wednesday, you have Morgan Stanley, Bank of America, and ASML as the big ones. Thursday, TSM, Charlie Schwab, Abbott, Pepsi, as well as Netflix being the big ones. And Friday is kind of like a low-key day, just really featured by the banks. And then pay attention to the Fear and Greed Index. You can just Google search Fear and Greed Index, and then you'll be able to find this. But the idea is, if we see the market move more into extreme fear, there could be the potential that the market could tank. But if you see it move into the greed and extreme greed levels, we could see the market be very, very bullish. All right. So for those of you guys in my Discord community, I'll see you guys tomorrow, 9 a.m. We'll do a thorough pre-market analysis and look for some key levels. And right now, the key thing is, let's just wait for the Asia Open. The expectation is we might see a pullback, a pull-up, and then a major drop. So just be patient with taking your trade. But there's the anticipation that with no deal in Iran, there's potential for massive move to the downside. But you never know. Market makers do whatever they want. So anyway, this was a good first. This was a good first session. So thank you guys so much, and I'll see you guys on the other side. Take care.